Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Kansas City Profiles, presented by Easton Roofing, and an intriguing, enjoyable, fascinating conversation with Annette Wiles. She was recently named one of the people who will be inducted into the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame in October, one of 12 in this particular class, and deservedly so, to say the least. Born in tiny Hunter, Kansas, she was a high school standout and went on to Fort Hays State and became a 4-year Hall of Fame caliber basketball player, averaging over 20 points a game every season and 24 points a game in her final year. Scoring over 2,407 points, still holds myriad records at Fort Hays State, set in the late 80s and early 90s, and then went on to a standout coaching career, winning well over 400 games from Bethany, Kansas College, on to Fort Hays State, her alma mater, for 8 years, and then on to Minnesota Duluth as well. Twice named Kansas Basketball Association Coach of the Year, and twice named the Kansas Collegiate Athletic Conference Coach of the Year. She has been in all aspects of basketball and athletics, and recently has been the athletic director at Topeka High School, and now is the director of the Hummer Sports Park in Topeka. She has been a standout at every level. She has a bright and bubbly personality. It is a great pleasure to have our Kansas City profile, presented by Easton Roofing, be Annette Wiles of the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame this year.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
Did you experience hail damage last year and never got the work done? Most insurance companies only give you a year to get the roof fixed, and if you don't get it done, you could possibly not be compensated in full for the replacement of your roof. If you've been procrastinating getting that damaged roof taken care of, give us a call at 913-257-5426, and we'll send out an expert to help you through the process. We're never pushy, we're just here to help. Easton Roofing. Integrity matters.
It's always great to get an update from Dr. Brad Woodall from Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture, 8 locations all around Kansas City, including the newest one in Raytown.
We are very excited to join the Raytown community. We just took over for Dr. David Frey, who retired and has then shared all of his patients with us to take great care of.
They do it all year round, and that means in the fall as well, when people get back to raking leaves and participating in fall sports, all those kinds of things, right?
Back to school means back for fun. Full backpack, we can help as your chiropractor. If you're starting fall sports, we want to make sure you have that physical, and we want to make sure you're in great shape. And if injuries happen, we've got your back.
And you've got it all around Kansas City at 8 different locations for Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture. Visit asfca.com/Danny. That's asfca.com/Danny.
If you'd like to join these and other fine sponsors and market your business on Kansas City's #1 rated podcast, contact us at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. Look forward to working with you.
Annette, you're from Hunter, Kansas in north central Kansas, and tell us about life in a tiny town in Kansas for a young girl, Annette Wiles.
Well, growing up in Hunter, it was a town of about 150 people, and it was a unified school district with Sylvan Grove Unified K through 12. I was blessed to be in a family that had a servant's heart. My dad was the mayor of our little town for the 33 years, and we were a family that was very community and service-minded, and obviously there was not a lot to do in a one-stop sign town, so shooting baskets, playing sports, and doing the things that we loved doing as a kid growing up in a small town, basketball just became a love and a passion for me.
Was it something that you took to right away and saw that you had some aptitude?
Well, whenever I was fighting with my younger brother and sister, my mom would look at me and say, go clean your room or go outside and shoot baskets. So I always chose to go shoot baskets.
Well, it certainly did pay off. And when did it start to develop into something that looked like it might become more than just something you did when you were being disciplined?
Well, in junior high, I was so excited to finally be playing organized basketball, and we were able to win our league championship my 7th grade year and our 8th grade year. And it really felt like something special, and you felt the love of the community, of seeing people so excited for you and your team. And again, knowing that I was, a 6'8" 8th grader, that
Right.
was obviously an advantage to get me the ball and to be able to score points. So being able to be a good offensive threat and obviously being able to be a good inside to a zone defense was very beneficial. And I started seeing my value to being a good teammate. Then I got into high school, and we got a new coach for our girls basketball team, which was Mike Weatherman. And Coach Weatherman was also the football coach. So he was just a very disciplined and very disciplinarian, very blunt, straightforward kind of a coach. And I really took to his style of coaching. He ran a lot of KU offense and defense. He ran a lot of North Carolina offense and defense, which I loved at that time, all of those coaches, and loved watching those teams play on TV. So he really became my inspiration, because he started convincing me that this small town kid that happened to be leading the state of Kansas in scoring 1A through 6A and being able to play for 2 state championships, he was like, there is really a future for you playing in college. And that's when the college recruiting process started. And I was recruited by most of the schools at that time in the Big 8. I used to get a Sunday night phone call from the University of Hawaii, and I always used to think it was fun that they would call my house in North Central Kansas and want me to come and play college basketball there. But I was also that small town kid that wanted to still be in my brother and sister's lives, still be able to go home on the weekends. So ultimately, I ended up choosing Fort Hays State.
What was it like to be somebody who was scoring all these points and being so focused on things? What kind of stuff did they throw at you in high school to try and slow you down?
Well, a lot of times, we would always talk about the double teams. And a lot of times people would, again, you're talking back in the 80s, a lot of people played a lot of zones. So they would play what they called a sagging zone, where they would put 2 or 3 players around me and virtually dare our perimeter players to score points from further out. As a part of that, I also got to be a very sufficient rebounder, because knowing that my teammates weren't going to make every shot that they took, I started playing their misses as a pass to myself and started getting offensive rebounds and putbacks. And that also became a very big strength of my game. Knowing that I'm still carrying an all-time leading scorer at Fort Hays as male or female, but it also was built around I was a really great rebounder. Whether it was rebounding my own misses or rebounding my teammates' misses, I saw that as an offensive opportunity.
When you were a teenager outside of basketball, what did you like to do? What was life like in that going to a small school, a unified school, and what was that like?
Well, as a small kid growing up, one of the first things was I started mowing yards with a push mower when I was probably about 7 years old, because my dad had said our neighbor needed their yard mowed. And so I got a $10 bill, and I thought that was really pretty cool that I could get $10 for mowing a yard using my dad's mower. So that $10 turned into 10 yards. And then all of a sudden I had $100, and I started realizing like, wow, this is really cool. So I started my own little lawn mowing business, and I carried that lawn mowing business all the way through my high school years of mowing yards. And then obviously, was a kid that was able to accumulate money so I could buy a motorcycle or buy a bicycle. And so it was able to have access to knowing that if I worked hard, then I was going to be able to get rewarded with something I could buy. And then obviously fishing. I mean, my passion and my love, even still today, my hobby is the love of fishing. I used to fish largemouth bass and farm ponds, and now I spend a lot of time, as I find myself getting older, comfortably sitting in my lawn chair fishing for catfish. But I love fishing. I love nature. I love the outdoors, and my life was truly a blessing in a small town, because you just always had such a community-minded spirit, where people, they didn't care if you went fishing in their pond, and they didn't care if that you rode rode your motorcycle out in their pasture. And I was just blessed to have great family and great friends growing up in Hunter.
What was the adjustment, if there was one, to going to Fort Hays? You obviously thrived pretty quickly, but what was it like?
Well, the biggest adjustment was that there was stoplights and there was multiple lanes and roads. So first of all, I had to get comfortable just driving in Hays, because I was like, wow, this is a city in comparison to where I grew up. As a basketball player, obviously, as a 1A kid growing up playing at Sylvan Unified, we played in Gross Memorial Coliseum, and that was always that pinnacle place that you dreamed of ending your season in Gross Memorial. And to know as a college basketball player, I was going to get to practice and play at Gross Memorial every day. It was such an honor and a privilege when John Klein and Tom Burkhart visited my house for a home visit, and they really talked about that they were bringing in 8 players in a freshman class that were going to be the central focus of the future of Fort Hays State women's basketball. And at that time, it had been a losing program. And I really believed in our hard work would eventually pay off. And each season, as we grew older as players in the program and as we gained more experience, our record continued to improve each and every year. And then ultimately culminating with the national championship my senior year in 1991.
Your last 3 years, you averaged over 20 points a game. Your last year, you averaged 24 points a game. Obviously, it's college basketball, so there's more good players around you. How much did that help?
Well, I think a big part of it is, as I said before, it was just a necessity of the expectation of my coaches and my teammates that I was going to go out and get my points. And we really focused as a defensive team at Fort Hays. We really prided ourselves on our team defense. And you take players like, Julie Kazar and Christy Leapermise, and you start taking players that were standout defensive players equally as much as myself or Patrice Faulkner might have been an offensive player. That's what really made us a great team. Again, also picking up those rebounds of missed shots from other teammates and trying to get offensive putbacks became a big part of my life equally as well. But, again, as I grew to be 6'3" and carried a strong presence of physical dominance and pretty much playing against the boys most of my life, growing up in Hunter and Sylvan Grove within school, the physical game became a very big part of my game. And I just would feel like I could outwork or just out physically play someone.
You obviously had that tremendous success, and you mentioned in high school you had a very straightforward, no-nonsense disciplinarian type of coach. Was that the same in college, or was it a little different?
Well, Coach Klein was probably the most meek and mild and quietest coach to win a national championship. He's probably the coach that spoke the least amount of words. He was just a person that believed in people, and he was a person that believed that if he recruited, hardworking people that did well in the classroom, we carried a very high team GPA all 4 years that I played at Fort Hays. And as a part of that, he felt that if he created an environment that he was basically a professor and we were the students of the game and we understand the why, he didn't have to do a lot of, yelling and screaming at us in a locker room or on a sideline, because he had us always so well prepared.
When you were playing in the late 80s, early 90s, women's college basketball, how was the respect level there and things like that?
Well, I think, as you grow to know Fort Hays basketball as a whole, our men's and women's teams were extremely close. In fact, we still get together around the July 4th holiday. There's about 30 of us as men's and women's basketball players, alumni from Fort Hays, that still gather and get together. We were a very close team, both men's and women's teams. And of course, the men's team had early success with back-to-back national championships under Coach Morris in the early 80s. And I think as our women's program was there, we were living in that kind of shadow of their national championship success, and we wanted to experience that. So I think it was actually something that motivated us and drove us toward that. Dr. Hammond was such a supportive president of our women's basketball team, and we always joked as a president at Fort Hays, we were the first team to put a national championship ring on his finger. And there's just a lot of history and respect. And I think in part was